This episode of Outdrank the Coverage is brought to you by the Frisco Bar and Grill. They're located at 6750 Gaylord Parkway in Frisco, Texas. They're the perfect place for you to watch your favorite sports teams. They have large TVs. They have multiple screens. They have all the games being played, especially if you're a San Francisco 49er or Oklahoma Sooner fan. They are the official club watching place for those two teams in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But not only that, they have great selection of food, drinks. They keep you going during the game. So whether you're a casual fan or a diehard sports enthusiast, the Frisco Bar and Grill is the perfect place to enjoy a game with friends and family. And guess what? They also have great food and drinks, shuffleboard, karaoke, live music. So come down to the Frisco Bar and Grill located at 6750 Gaylord Parkway, Suite 120 in Frisco. It's the best place to watch sports in Frisco and music and sing.
After graduation, you guys rolled me my first joint. That's it. I kept it.
Are you in the bathroom?
Yeah, I'm in the bathroom. What's the big deal?
I'm not sure I really appreciate being associated with your bathroom time.
This is the only time I get to myself.
Is this a common occurrence?
What do you Ladies, make a pick or get a room and rub dongs. Either way, let's get moving here.
Hey, I'm Taco.
Taco, we've been friends for 15 years.
Oh, you found it. Awesome. Come to Papa.
It's not for yourself, for your family.
I want it so bad. Look at it. It's so strong.
4.
Atta girl. There you go. Good girl.
There are many things a man can do with his time. And this is better than those things.
What happens when you take It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and create characters that are actually successful in life but are still assholes? Oh, and they play fantasy football. That's what you get with the league. Even during us doing, oh, by the way, I'm Terry Bennett, that's intern Nohe. But even doing that part, playing the edit, you and I were just laughing the whole time. The league is definitely one of our favorite shows. It's one of my go-to shows for when I just want something to watch. And so what we're going to be doing here in the offseason of Outdrank the Coverage, one of our monthly episodes, is we're going to be looking back at the league, all the seasons. And we're going to start today with the league season 1. So were you intern Nohe from the beginning on this show? Because I actually wasn't. I think I caught it around season 2 or 3 maybe. But when did you find the league?
It was about the same time as you, season 2 or 3. I think it was season 3, 2011.
Yeah,
it was around the time we met, and it was hooked because in 2010 I took a year off from fantasy football. My first year in fantasy football was 2008, and then I did 08, 09. I won a championship in 09. Just took the year off, and then 2011 I started working my current company and started to. I wanted to be a commissioner, so I created a league at work, and the rest is, still have that league going. You and I now have a league.
Yep.
I think we're planning on doing a lot of leagues this year. So
yeah, and that's the thing. Okay, so that's one of the things about the league, the show, that was always kind of ran against most of us. Very few people actually just do a league. I know some people do, but most people that do it usually probably do a couple. Yeah. But there's a great episode about that when they all go to Ruxin's house and Andre is basically cheating on the league. But we'll get into all that. So you brought up the fact that you skipped a year. So let's, before we go to the show, give me your fantasy football history. Like, do you remember the year you started? Or is that just, give me your history of fantasy football.
Yeah, so I started in 2008. So
that was your very first year?
That was my very first year.
Oh, okay.
I had sort of heard of it. I didn't know what it was. It sounded kind of intimidating to me, but I was
really you being an accountant, a guy with numbers and stuff. That seemed like that would be perfect.
It's because I had no idea what to expect.
I got that.
Some coworkers at an old job of mine told me to try it since I love football so much. I can tell you the 2 big steals I had were Chris Johnson and Michael Turner. I had them on my same team.
Burner Turner. The guy that reinvented himself from San Diego to Atlanta. I don't know why, but I've always just been fascinated how he went from a speed back to a power back overnight.
And I felt I tricked everyone because no one knew how good Chris Johnson was going to be. And it was his rookie year, and he had a pretty. It wasn't the 2,000 yard season, but it was a great season.
He was basically the Josh Allen of running backs. Everybody thought that he had the talent, but he'd played on a smaller team against inferior competition with inferior talent around him as well. And, you know, you didn't know what he was going to do. People thought he would be a Hall of Fame back, and then some people thought he'd be out of the league in 3 years.
And then with Turner, you know, he was a backup to LT at San Diego, and he gets traded to Atlanta. I always knew he'd be good just because going back to college when he was an actual burner and didn't put on like an extra 30 pounds when he went to the NFL. And I knew he'd be good.
But Wisconsin?
I think it was like Northern Illinois.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
it wasn't like
you're right.
Yeah,
You're
it wasn't
right.
like one of the blue blood.
But that's when
teams.
Northern Illinois had a couple running backs that were kind of getting into the league. And they had
probably, yeah.
Yeah, that's I totally. I don't know why I thought Wisconsin. So I really thought you had done it before 08.
No, I've always done it where it was always online. They didn't have to. I remember you telling me your stories like you had to mail in.
Oh yeah, so 1994. It was right in the middle of the Cowboys run. I think it was 94.
Yeah.
And I did the stupid thing of picking all Cowboys, you know, and the way you did it, the way I didn't know at the time this is what it was, but everybody could have technically the same lineup. It was one of those where you had so much money and you could just pick kind of what FanDuel does, and so I picked all Cowboys, which that year 94 and 95 it worked with Emmett and Irvin. Aikman it didn't, and so you literally picked your lineup, you mailed it in, and then each week. You got something back. I don't know how they did this so good back then, but you would get on Monday or Tuesday, you would get a thing that said, okay, you have till Thursday to send this in. Do you want to make changes in case somebody was hurt and things like that? I didn't do anything. I'm like, I just took a few years off because that was fun, but it didn't really do anything. But then in 1997, I went back to college. I get my first email. I'm on Yahoo in the college, computer lab.
Yeah.
And I find out that ESPN, you can do fantasy football.
In 1997.
97.
Oh, okay.
And it was terrible. Again, it was the same way. It wasn't like a league. It wasn't head-to-head. You just drafted your team, and then you played, and whoever got the most points each week, and that's how it did. It wasn't like it evolved to now.
So, like, back in 97, I'm guessing there wasn't many rules, like scoring options. Because, you know, now...
I can't even remember. That's a good question.
Because, you know, now if you use the Yahoo or ESPN or whatever website, they have a lot of different options.
Yeah, I think this was basically touchdowns and yards. That was about
Simple
it.
enough. Yeah.
I don't even. I don't. Again, and if people were playing back then and were in leagues that were more, please let us know. ODTCNFL@gmail.com. But yeah, it was very simple, and I lost interest. Like 3 weeks in, I stopped. Well, then in 2001, that year, I go to A&M Commerce, and I'm with my best friend, my roommate, and we did an online league on NFL.com. First year that they offered it, I think the first year. And it was a 20-team league. I took 10 teams. He took 10 teams. It's just stupid, just to do it. We wanted to do it. I remember I was running out of names, and so one of my names, in fact, it's the team that won the league, was the Fireflies. Because I just couldn't think of any names. I mean, you know, I did the Cowboy, you know, anyway. And so then from that point on, I just kind of, that's when you started getting more of the online. Yahoo started doing theirs, and then I just started doing those like just random leagues. And then I would join a couple other leagues. And then it's funny because I kind of think, and I think this not just from us, but I kind of think the league, the show, is what made it all more, oh, this is okay. This doesn't have to be a dirty little secret that you do at 1 a.m. You can talk about it at parties and talk about your teams and stuff. And then you and I were in the same league, and that made it a lot more enjoyable. And we were in the same league doing all the same things that this was doing before we even knew that this was a show. We were all trash talking. Now, we weren't doing the webcam. I don't know if anybody ever really did that. We didn't do message boards, really. It was all in person usually, just, you know. But yeah, and for whatever reason, this show grabbed me. And it's not even the football part. Like, the football part, it's funny, we were reading a thing before we began about how they tried to make the football as accurate as possible. I guess. I mean, the names were right, but, like, it was always too simple. Like, oh, I just need a touchdown, or I just need a field goal. Well, what if your guy didn't get a touchdown, but he got 180 yards? You know, that's still going to give you a lot of points. But I think what made this show work And I said it at the beginning, and it's funny because we also read that there's a Always Sunny Easter egg in every show or every episode. Is this literally was It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but these are successful people outside of Taco. And even Taco, though, basically was living a middle class life, even if he didn't realize it. And I think that made it almost more powerful for people because I think at times Always Sunny gets a little too mean, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, yeah, but they usually direct it at one character.
Yeah.
On It's Always Sunny. I mean, they were, the worst people, but they were all friends. Kind of like with the league, but like you said, with, the league has people with, actual good jobs. I think Kevin and Ruxin, I mean, we'll get into all the characters, but like two of the people.
We're going to start now.
Okay, so we're just going down the list of characters. Let me. I'll just do the ones that are actually in the league first.
Okay,
those are like the main characters.
Yes, that's fine.
So first off is Mark Duplass. He plays Pete Eckhart. The little bit of backstory: the league, the actual fantasy league on this show started in 2005.
Yeah.
So by the time the league, the actual TV show came out in 2009, 3 seasons had already gone by, and Pete had won 3 out of the 4. Randomly, another character, Taco, played by John LaJoie, won the 2006 one. And I'm thinking they never went back to explain it, but in 2006, LaDainian Tomlinson had the MVP.
Yeah.
He had that monster season.
Yeah.
I assume that was his main player on that 06 team. Because there's no other way Taco would have won.
I kind of like the fact that they never explained it. Like,
Yeah.
there's always just a mystery. Like, is there something where injuries hit everybody else, or was there something where life in general just took over? But yeah, I agree with you.
So Mark Duplass' character, Pete Eckhart, 3-Pete, that's his team name because he has 3 championships. And as we go through each season of the league, you'll realize he hasn't won anything since.
And he gets progressively worser.
He does get progressively worse.
That's kind of one of those. And to be honest with you, I didn't even think about that part until you and I we were deciding how we're doing this, and just we've said it before, but the way we do this right now in the off season is we basically get together once a month and we were going to record 3 episodes at once. And so we already knew that we wanted to do movies and sports movies and TV shows, and we were like, well, the first off season should just be the league. That's just perfect. And it wasn't till I was researching and rewatching season 1, and then I've already watched season 1, I might as well watch season 2, and go on. I've done that like 3 times since January. I realized he gets not only worse and worse, he cares less and less about the actual league, which is interesting because that's exactly what, and we'll talk about each episode, that's exactly what his, at the time, wife wanted him to do. And it's funny because if she'd have just let him naturally do it, he was going to do it anyway.
Well, yeah, when we get to season 7, the hypocrisy will come out with Megan.
Oh, yeah.
So the Pete Eckhart, he's married in the first episode on the first season to Leslie Bibb.
Show starts on him. That's literally where the show starts.
Yeah.
And I kind of wonder if at the time, if that was on purpose, was the show at one point going to be through his eyes? Because the show, it goes through everybody, but it ended up basically centering on Jenny and Kevin MacArthur. That's kind of where you see the characters through their eyes to begin each episode.
Well, I mean, they seem to be the most stable couple in this entire series.
Which turns out that they're actually not. I mean, they are together, but just they're the most vicious to everybody at times.
Yeah. Kevin, but Jenny, oh my gosh.
Oh, she's perfect. Speaking of Kevin, I do want to, so before we go back into the character things, we talk about, so I'm the type on certain shows like Supernatural, another show I absolutely love. It was 3 or 4 years. I kept reading all the great reviews on it. It was like, okay, finally I'm going to break down and watch it. And I remember I had come across the league on FXX back when I still, or FX, not FFX, back when I still had cable. And I was like, okay, fantasy football, these guys are funny. And I remember that Netflix at the time had the first 2 seasons. And so I'm watching the first episode and I'm like, okay, it's okay. The first few minutes, the draft thing was kind of funny. But then this part happened, and honestly, this is right here is what hooked me into the league.
Going away for 10 years. Unless we swap first-round picks. Sidebar. What's sidebar? You can't take my #1 pick.
You give me the #1 pick. I'm going to give you my 6th pick in the draft, okay? And I'm going to give your client 7 years. I'm going to knock it down from 10 to 7.
For the #1 pick, this man should be able to walk out the door today, go on a crime spree that would make Robert Blake come in his pants. And then he should be able to go home and have sex with your wife and then be given a parade in his honor.
He's kidding.
Shh. Respect the sidebar, sir. Thank you. Listen to me. I'm doing you a favor here, okay? This is pro bono work for you.
Listen, all I want to say to you is this. I got to do 2 of these cases a year. This man, guilty or innocent, can do no more than 6 years for 3rd-round picks.
It's not going to happen, okay? It's 1st-round pick. What do you want to do?
He goes for 5 years. We swap 1st rounds.
Pleasure doing business with you, sir.
So right there, that's the scene that hooked me in because first off, funny enough, that's probably the most confident Kevin ever is in the show. Like that is the one time where he seems to have control over Ruxin, which as you learn through the series makes that even funnier because Ruxin usually gets the best of Kevin as far as certain things. One of my favorite episodes down the road is when Ruxin teaches Kevin the lie. I just absolutely love that.
Oh yeah.
But that episode, that scene, that's what hooked me. That's when I knew, okay, this is funny because they're literally, and also had Hector in it. Hector at the time was the resident Hispanic for every show that needed a Hispanic. There's actually funny memes and websites about that. But I don't know. There's just something about that scene. I already knew who Nick Kroll was. And to be fair, of the people on the show, I knew who John LaJoy was, who plays Taco. I knew who Paul Scheer was because who plays Andre. He did some Adult Swim stuff that are really, really funny. And I knew who Nick Kroll was. Everybody else I was pretty new to coming into the show. And I like that because when I see, Kate Asselton, all I see is Jenny. When I see Mark Duplass, all I think is Pete. And for good or bad, because sometimes I'm like, he's in 2 really good horror movies called Creep, and they're really, really good, and he's really, really good in it. But there's times I just see Pete in what he's saying, and I just, I go from there. But yeah, that scene grabbed me. That's the scene that I was like, okay, I want to spend time in this world.
That's a good question on what actually grabbed you, what makes you want to keep watching. I think for me was how they determined the first overall pick.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that right now. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go from episode to episode, just talking about each. Oh, by the way, we'll get into who created it and all that here in a second. All right, so the first episode, like we said, it starts with Mark Duplass, Pete, basically talking crap to the league, and then you find out his at the time wife Leslie Bibb was like, basically it's time to be over. You need to get over this. Then it transitions to the negotiation. Again, that's where it hooked me right there. And then the party. And so this is a birthday party for Ellie. That's the kid of Jenny and Kevin. And I will say this. I honestly, and I could be wrong, but I honestly think the league is the one that started people having these crazy ways to get your draft. Because
I don't think any other show had fantasy football.
Well, no, I'm just talking about like in real life fantasy. Like I had never heard about anybody doing crazy. It was always just draw a hat, you're first, you're second. I don't think anybody ever even thought of this outside of until this show.
Yeah, hey, I have friends that were in fraternities or sororities, or really fraternities, and they'll have fantasy football leagues with them. So it's an excuse for them to get together.
Yeah.
No matter how their life changes, it's a way for them to. So that kind of reminds me of this show because they all know at this point of the first season, they all known each other for 15 years since like 6th grade.
Yes.
So they're all lifelong friends.
They all went, or not all of them, but some of them went to college together too. I mean, these are, and again, I think if there was one knock I would have on the show is that I would it was a kind of an excuse for them to all get together and do drafts, and it doesn't matter like what their lives were at that point in time. It was always an excuse. Hey, bail on everything else, do this. And so I guess they're all born like 81, 82 because when we get to season 2, we'll talk about it more, but season 2 they have a 10-year high school reunion. Yep.
So typically everybody's 18 when they graduate high school. So by 2010 they were 28.
Which kind of tracks, but kind of doesn't. Some of them seem to be a little bit further in their careers than a 28-year-old might be.
Kevin just might not be the most competent assistant district attorney.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, even assistant, I guess DA, I don't know.
Well,
I
they were trashing him for his position. I'm like, assistant district attorney sounds like a great position to me.
Especially in the state of Illinois, in Chicago. It's not like he's doing it in a small East Texas county. He's doing it in one of the biggest counties in America.
So Andre's character, Paul Scheer plays Andre. He's the most successful financially. He is a plastic surgeon in Chicago. He has his own practice.
Go ahead. I'm going to make a point about him after this.
And, someone in that position should not be 26, 27 by, having their own practice. They're usually in college, almost finishing with their degree.
That's a
by
really
that
good point,
So
especially medical.
So it kind of doesn't add up that he's able to have his own practice in downtown Chicago and be the number 1 or 2 plastic surgeon in all of Chicago.
Well, and that's the funny thing, because of all the characters, Dr. Andre Nosewick, I almost said the poor name, he gets crapped on the most.
Well, it's because they're all friends, and to me, it's them being a little jealous of his success.
That's my point.
Yeah,
that's where I was going, is in terms of just true life, for his station in life, the way he looks, he's always got pretty hot girlfriends. He ends up with Shiva at the end of season 1. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But he always takes all the crap, but he's probably the most successful. Now, Rodney Ruxin's probably second, but you also, it never said it, but you also kind of felt maybe Ruxin had a lot of his just from family. Like there might be just family money as part of his success. Also, he rarely goes to court. He always settles, which, he's always getting money from settlements and stuff. But yeah, it was just always weird that Andre took the most crap, but he was probably truly the most successful. Now, I was going to say this. The one thing I thought that this show didn't do well enough for me, and again, it's that Always Sunny in Philadelphia. You talked about it. They were all friends since 6th grade. It would be nice to every once in a while actually see true friendship. Like when down the road, when Ruxin's wife died, which I still think is one of the worst decisions they made.
I bet if they redo this show in the future, like a 10-year reunion in a couple years, they're going to retcon that.
I could see that, because that never made sense. I don't know why this, by the way, our recording.
Spoiler alert, everybody.
Yeah, spoiler alert. I got to change this. I'm sorry. This is saying intern Noe. I just got to say intern Noe. That's the one thing about restreams is you can't do double names on our cameras. But anyway, so that was one of the few things that I had a problem with. But you talked about the draft thing, so let's go ahead and go into that. Episode 1, as we said, it transitioned, and this is the part that you're talking about right here.
It's time to pick the draft order.
So, this is how we're going to do it. I'd spent a lot of time, put a lot of effort into it, got very excited. So, that'll go over there. Everyone on the count of 3, put your hand in, pull out a piece of paper. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, wow.
There it is.
This is really exciting.
Number 4.
Number 6.
Number 1.
Number 1.
Tim Brady,
Congratulations. But that is not where you're going to be drafting. See the kids over there? The kid with your number is your kid. Where they finish in the race is where you draft. Huh, bitches?
You didn't even pick your own child.
That's good, because she's not that fast.
This is fantastic,
I know.
my friend.
Let's
I'm
do
impressed.
It. Come on.
Did you just turn this into a league event?
Bet your ass I did.
It's really good. We're not rooting for Ellie.
No, number 7.
Come on, 7, come on!
You flaxen-haired little maniac! Adrian Peterson, the first pick in the draft!
Give me my
I love
child.
this kid! I love this kid! Balls! Yes! Suck it!
And if the first episode, the first scene, the negotiation grabbed me, that right there just absolutely rolled me.
Yeah.
Again, I had never heard of anybody doing crazy. And again, if maybe, like you said, people that are fraternities, stuff like that, maybe they did. And maybe that's where the creators of the league got this. And we'll talk about them here in a minute. But I had never heard of that. It was always just standard, hey, we're drawing hats, you're first, you're second. And so for them to do this, and then they did such a good job of making it more extreme the next season. And even in the last season, a season that I am not a fan of, I have come to like it a little bit more as it's gotten older. But that might be the best draft. Whole thing is just the way they do that in the last season. Yes. But anyway, so that was episode 1, and it laid the foundation. I can remember I used to be they just stopped, but I was big on Entertainment Weekly. That was a magazine I've had since the day they started, and I wish I'd get credit. I literally had a subscription from day 1 to when they closed out last year.
Remember when we used to have magazines in the bathroom?
It's funny as you're saying that. I was cleaning the studio bathroom and I threw away one of the Entertainment Weeklies. It was the Matrix, the last Matrix one. It was just on the counter and I threw it away. But they were talking about the league, and I remember them reference the draft part. And so when I went back to watch it, that stuck back out. Like, oh yeah, that is really funny. And again, I think though what they did a really good job of though was keeping the football early on as part of it, but that wasn't really truly the main focus. So let's turn our attention to episode 2, the bounce test.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this is first off the first part just being Ruxin deciding. I never understood why he got into it, but Ruxin deciding that as he's going to look at this chick in a.
Well, okay, so they just had the baby. Ruxin and his wife Sophia had baby Jeffrey, and Sophia was not ready to start back up on the marital love process. Yes. So Ruxin was getting a little backed up, so to speak, a little frustrated. So really anything, like just blowing his face, and he would have been very aroused.
Yes.
So that's kind of where we get into the bounce test.
And she's trying to figure out if she wants a sports bra. And by the way, Nadine Velasquez is absolutely funny as Sophia. If you don't recognize the name, but if you remember, My Name is Earl. She was in that as a stripper, and she was absolutely funny. I've always felt she was one of the most underrated parts of this show. Maybe that's why when they kill her, spoilers, when they kill her off, that just made no sense. And I think I remember I think she had contracts, to do other stuff, and she couldn't. Yeah. But anyway, she's trying to do a bra, and so apparently there's a website that you can put you see a woman in the bra working out. And that's why it's called the bounce test. Anyway, so Ruxin gets into that. And
a very aesthetically pleasing. Yeah, that's what I was.
Was it? Because I never thought it was.
She was the thing is, I don't think they showed her face. I think it was just neck down.
It's the neck down. And also, again, because of where it was, you couldn't, even though FX is a little bit more blue than regular, you couldn't show her in see-through or stuff. It was a very, honestly, kind of like a grandma-looking bra from what I remember. But that's not what this episode is most remembered for. This episode started something, and we'll come out to it, but this is what this show is this episode, and maybe the show, honestly, is most remembered for.
What's up, boys? Hey. Dr. Dre, Pete, what's going on?
Not much. What's going on with you?
Hey, let me buy you a drink. No, it's cool, man. I don't pay for drinks here. The bartender's my Eskimo brother. What's up, T-Bag? I get the usual.
What's a Eskimo brother?
Eskimo brother. When two guys had sex with the same girl, they're Eskimo brothers. You have to know what your Eskimo family tree is. That's how you get things done.
So it's like your platinum card?
How do you guys get things done?
And we got jobs.
Went to college?
Yeah, we make money and we purchase things.
You guys are weird.
Eskimo brother. Which leads me to the next thing about the league. One of the things any great show does, in my opinion, and this one did, is it basically created its own vocabulary. You and I can honestly, and we've done it before, you and I can honestly have conversations where we're basically just talking in league vernacular, and it makes sense. Like, you and I know what we're talking about. And one of the big ones is Eskimo brother.
Yeah, and that's one that kind of seems more mainstream now. Mm-hmm. Just in casual conversation on different shows, podcasts, they'll say Eskimo brothers like it's not a synonym for something else.
Yes.
They know exactly what it means, and so it seems like the league created something that became mainstream. I think this was the most mainstream phrase they used. They had to circumvent, network television censorship, so they came up with, I think later in this season, I think episode 5, you meet Bobby Lee's character. He's a little different
special needs.
So instead of calling him special needs or something offensive, they use the word frittata.
And frittata became. See, I actually think maybe frittata might be the most carried over. But you brought up the podcast and Eskimo brother. when I first started listening to Jason Kelsey and Travis Kelsey, they literally started their episode with, we're the Kelsey brothers. And Travis would be like, we don't mean Eskimo. We're real brothers. And then Jason would be like, well, maybe we're Eskimos. And Travis would be like, well, let's not talk about that. And it was like, that's, again, it stuck. And all great shows do it. One of my other favorite shows, Buffy, they literally created the word Googling. They made Google a verb. The very first time anybody said...
I never knew that.
Yep. The very first time anybody ever said that was in Buffy. And so great shows. And I think the reason it works is they're not trying to make... I don't think they were trying to make Eskimo Brothers be it was just a part in the show.
But they also said it at a time when the show was very popular.
Yes.
So everybody heard it.
Yes.
And then they started, copy and paste.
And
rinse, repeat.
Well, and also the way it works too is you keep using the word through you don't just say it once. Like Eskimo Brothers became a huge part of Taco's character. Like it's used many times, and it's even in his version of Facebook.
He got rich off of it.
Yes, he got rich off of it.
Was it Mark Cuban?
No, Jerry Jones. Oh no, Mark Cuban.
Well, Jerry Jones was Cowboys.
Yeah, I just realized he got rich multiple times.
And we'll talk about this in another episode. But in season 4, in real life in 2012, Dallas Cowboys lost the rights to the domain rights to their own website. So they just played into the league. They got Jerry Jones to sign off on it. They even invited the cast to training camp. So it was kind of cool to see the.
Okay, so hang on. Most embarrassing, and I know this is down in that season, and we'll bring it back up. Most embarrassing moment for the Cowboys: losing a Super Bowl, losing to the Eagles for a playoff game, getting beat 44 to whatever, or Jay Ratliff's "You don't score on the Cowboys."
That was just about I mean, I'm like,
So
yeah,
bad.
everybody did. You saw the 2011 season. You were there.
See, and
you were letting them in the end zone.
And in my mind, and this is where you annoy me sometimes. No, not really, but in my mind, I was like, well, this was after the 2009 season. They were really good. And you're like, no, dude, that was 2010. I'm like, no. Because in my mind, maybe I was just, doing that whole like protecting myself. But yeah, so first off, we were going to do this thing where we were going to be like, okay, what's the worst episode? What's the best episode? There's only 6 episodes in this one, but also honestly, and there's multiple seasons that I can say this, I don't think there's a bad episode in season 1. And that's really tough for a show that's just beginning. Usually the pilot and the first season are the weaker parts. I didn't feel like it was. I felt like every one of these seasons, now I don't have any clips, but let's go to episode 3, Sunday at Ruxin's. Absolutely.
Well, going back to what you said.
Yeah, go ahead.
I could rank all 6 episodes,
Yeah,
and
go ahead.
probably episode 4 is the worst to me. Like, it would be ranked number 6.
Mr. McGiblets?
Yeah.
McGiblets.
But that tells you how good this season. Season 1 was very good. The to me, the quote worst episode was still a really good episode.
And I'm sorry, I meant to point this out earlier. The season 2 episode also has royalty. Well, used to be royalty. Is she still royalty? Meghan Markle's in this.
She's in episode 2.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
I was going back to
season 2. Sorry, yeah, episode 2.
So, and she actually has a really funny part. Pete's kind of trying to figure himself out, and that's another thing about Pete. Again, I never really thought about this until we started researching this. Everything in Pete's life kind of goes to crap. Like he stops being good with the ladies, like because there for the first couple seasons, man, he's getting some nice ones, and then it just he kind of fizzles out. It's weird. It's just
Did you outdrink the coverage already?
No, just random video started playing.
Did your computer outdrink the coverage?
Yeah, maybe it did. It is new, and it is duct taped.
So yeah, Meghan Markle, she's in episode 2. She's just a newly divorced person. Pete's also divorced.
She doesn't like magic.
She does not like magic. They're kind of bonding on trashing Andre. So is the case for almost every episode.
And that was one of the funniest little things they had going was Andre's all of his pickup routines.
Yeah, because he said you gotta neg him first.
Yeah. Which is that's one of those things that people have started looking back now, and that's actually a real thing. Like it sounded like it was just a joke, but that is a real thing.
I thought it was a made up word.
Yes, and guys really do that. But yeah, so that was episode 2.
But we're not here to talk about relationships.
No, well, sort of, but not right now, because Andre will get his comeuppance and his Future wife won't like his comeuppance.
We'll talk about his future wife much
we'll
later.
And I love her as an actress. But anyway, so episode 3 is Sunday at Ruxin's. This to me is where I knew I was going to, I said this, but this is when I fully got hooked because it was just absolutely stupid. So Ruxin, again, we talked about Sophia, Ruxin's wife, very hot. He outkicked the coverage. Honestly, that's part of where we got the show name Outdrank the Coverage, because people would say you outkicked your coverage. And so I was like, well, let's just take kick and put drink, and that's what we always do anyway. But they decide that they're going to go over to Ruxin's house to spend a Sunday thinking that they're going to watch football.
Oh, we're in episode 3 now?
Yeah, we're episode 3. And I said that. Let's go to episode 3, but that's good, buddy. Talking about out drinking the coverage. So they get there, and it turns out that Sophia wants to have like a 45-course meal, and they're not going to watch football. And they come up with another term that I still use to this day, not even talking about sports. What is it?
Is it respect the pause?
Respect the pause.
Oh, okay.
That is one of the biggest things that I will be like watching something, and like if me and studio girlfriend are watching something and I go to the restroom, I'll be like, pause it, respect the pause. Don't play it till I get back. And again, this episode, it has football in it because they're talking about it, and it's also the episode where Andre, you find out, is cheating on the league. And not only is he cheating on the league, but the league that he's in, the second league, he is like a god. And I think almost any full-time fantasy player does this. I think we all, because I remember a couple years ago, I told you I was in a league of these dumbasses. Yeah. I went unbeaten, folks. I went unbeaten from week 1 all the way through, won the championship, and I'm talking about winning by like 30. Remember, I even told him, like, dude, this sucks. I thought it was going to be fun. It was boring. I'll still take the championship. I'll still put it up. But yeah, so I think anybody that does a lot of leagues, I think they're that one league where they're the big dog on the block.
Well, we may get ahead of ourselves. And okay, so I guess that wouldn't count. I've never been undefeated either, but like in a competitive league, what's the best season you've ever had? Record, and did you win the championship?
I guess technically that would be it.
But was it competitive?
Yeah.
Like, were they actually trying?
Honestly, I don't want to say best record, but when I won our league 2 years ago, because we started our show. For people that don't know, we started our show actually 10 years ago. We did it for 1 year, and then we didn't. And then during COVID, I was like, dude, we need some stuff to do. You want to do a show? And we brought it back out. And we started a league. But we didn't have any true listeners, so we just did random on Yahoo. Turns out we got a pretty damn good group of players, and it was a really competitive league. So as far as just pure competitive and winning it like that, I feel like that's probably my best. What about yours?
I would say, yeah, because you kind of started slow, and then you just went on a major roll.
Yeah, and it got to the point where at the end where it wasn't like the championship. I like, and I was, it felt like it, and I could be wrong if I went back and looked. It felt like I was the underdog in like the last 4 games, and I just kept having one dude step up and just have like 30 points and just setting it. But for you, what's your best that you remember?
It was a couple.
Because you're in a couple other leagues, like dynasty leagues and things like that.
I would say the best one was 2 years ago in a dynasty league. So 2021 season in a dynasty league. It was 14 games. I think they had just expanded the NFL season to 17. So, you want most leagues are 13 game regular seasons. So I went 12-2, and then I won the championship. But the funny part, I had a great team. They were stacked. I was like basically injury proof. Yeah, I had so much depth that I could just plug and replace, and I would score. I was ready. Yeah, and it's just so hard now because with no one playing in the preseason last season. To me, the thing like some seasons are the turnovers. Those are the theme of the year. To me, the theme of last season was injuries. It was just a war of attrition. Every team was just getting injured, their best players, because none of them were playing in the preseason.
Yep.
And, it's a 17-game season, and they're just getting tired. I really think the NFL, we could talk about it for another hour, but I think the NFL really needs to expand rosters and have almost like a pitch count in baseball. They need to start doing that for some of these players because it's just going to be harder and harder to play 60 minutes.
That's not a bad idea where you have a snap count.
25, 30 snaps out. Especially for linemen.
Well, and if you look at how the teams that win today, usually they have a defensive line that they found that perfect sweet spot. And this is our show. We're supposed to be talking about the league, but they find that perfect sweet spot where they have a couple studs on the D-line, and they also have a couple young guys on rookie contracts, and they can just rotate. And you know who started that?
Cowboys.
Jimmy Johnson. Anyway.
All right, so I went 12-2. So overall, I went 15-2. No, 14-2. I won the championship, but I kept winning a lot of games really close.
That makes it more fun, in my opinion. That's why I say that league I dominated. It wasn't like I was winning by 30 and 40 points. That's just not fun. I want the Monday night. I need 0.2 of a yard. Let's please get it. It happens in the first 2 minutes and I lose. This game.
Yeah, so that's how I won.
Yeah.
I needed Nick Chubb to give me 6 points.
So he gave you a Chubb?
It was a rogue. Yeah. I needed him to get 60 yards, 70 yards against the Steelers on Monday night.
Oh, yeah, I remember that game.
It was Roethlisberger's last home game.
And I needed him in our league.
Yeah,
That's the same game. Yes. And he didn't get touchdowns, but he just got ugly. 3 yards.
He had one big run, and everything else was ugly. And then finally, late in the third quarter, he got a 3 or 4 yard gain, and that was it. And then I was just crossing my fingers, hoping he didn't fumble or lose yardage.
Yep.
Oh, man.
Stressful. So that's something that doesn't happen as much. But since we're talking about the league, we're just talking about fantasy football in general, is the wake up on Tuesday and there's point corrections.
Oh, yeah.
I
was doing that for like a month.
I have lost one game that I know of where I was ahead, and then I think it was I can't remember what it was. It was something really stupid too, like I can't remember what it was. Something was discovered that they decided was a fumble that wasn't, and it didn't even affect the game. But it was a fumble.
We'll talk about season 2.
Yeah.
But that kind of decides the last place trophy.
I just forgot about that. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about that. So they don't really talk about it as much in season 1.
Okay.
But what made the league, in my opinion, the show it wasn't just about winning the Shiva, which we'll talk about the Shiva here in a minute. It was not winning the Sacco. And that, to me, is the cultural difference that the league created, where you had leagues now. It wasn't just about winning. It was also don't be last. And if you are last, you have ramifications, and you've got things you're going to have to do between the end of the last season and the beginning of the next season. I had never heard about that until the league.
Yeah, and in season 2, they'll go into why the last place trophy is called the Sacco.
Yeah, it evolves. It really isn't a Sacco in season 1. It is, but it's not a name.
Yeah, at their high school reunion,
one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, they're like, hey, look, by the end of this, we're gonna come up with a name for the last place trophy, and that's kind of how it goes from there. But anyway, we'll get to season 2 next.
You can tell we love the show because we just keep going, just over and over.
Season 1, like we'll go each episode, but season 1 is more of like introducing characters.
Yes.
Develop it's actually a good way, like a good writing strategy.
Exactly.
Introduce the characters, show some of their characteristics. Once you get every main character's story arc fleshed out, their history, then you can start really getting some good plots.
And it was done slow enough to where the character stuck, and they did a good job of, because sometimes shows get away from that. Yeah. This show never got away from that. Ruxin was always 100%. We joke about him or not, but the dude knew when shit was going down. Like, he knew when people were screwing him. And again, we'll talk about that. Andre, even when you think Andre's been given the gold shallot, he'll find a way to screw it. Kevin, always just overthinking. All those things, they stayed well with him. But let's go ahead and go to...
Oh, and also, Jenny is not a part of the league in season 1.
But she runs Kevin's
directly
team.
Part of it.
Yes.
She does not have her own team. She helps her husband, Kevin, run her team. And then Jenny's also another successful person. She's a real estate agent, I think.
Yes. But they kind of get away from that through the... I'm not going to say she becomes a stay-at-home mom, but they kind of just... There's a couple funny episodes. The homeless guy with her assets. But they kind of get away from that late in the season. But go ahead.
I was just saying, going over like the 8 teams. So there's Pete. There's Kevin. Mm-hmm. There is Andre.
Why don't you give their names? The
actors?
No, the names of the team.
Oh, Ruxin. Oh, I don't really know the names of the teams for some reason.
Well, we know that Andres, the double entendres.
Which is, they always make fun of his names.
You don't remember Pete Top Kevin Bottom?
Oh, Pete Top Kevin Bottom. I thought he kept there was one episode where they kept changing
because they were fighting each other through the message board. Yeah. Oh, and that's another thing. I have never been on a league that had a true message board. You and I have tried it on ours, and we'll get some, but nobody really talks trash.
Taco is Kevin's brother. He's the entrepreneur. he hits twice on some big deals,
Yes.
DallasCowboy.com, and then something else in the future. But yeah, his team is password is Taco.
Another good episode is when he has to do a real. That's season 2, I think. He has to do a real lineup.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
a funny
yeah.
one.
So, and there's 3 out of towners. There's Vince, you never see at all, and then there's Chuck, played by Will Forte in season 2, and I don't know his name. Oh, well, his nickname I don't think was his team name. Two Nut Chuck. And then Ted Rappaport was played by Adam Brody. He was out in L.A. You'll see him in later seasons, but Chuck, Ted, Vince, those are the out-of-towners. So it's an 8-team league. Typically, a good league is 10 to 14. Just to give you names of all the different different leagues.
Well, and that became a running
owners.
joke later. That's an 8-team league, and remember the doctor
everybody makes fun of him. Yeah.
But anyway, so let's go to episode 4, and that's the one you said. And you're saying you're not saying you hate it, but you're saying
because if I have to rank them 1 through 6, there has to be a last place episode. And
exactly. That's a good point.
But this was really good. It has a lot of good memorable moments. The spa trip.
So I will admit the spa trip. I'm kind of. This is one. I'm actually agreeing with you. I like the Mr. McGiblets part. I think that's funny. But the spa trip I kind of get I get lost. I do like the part where Ruxin's in there in the hot tub with Antonio Gates. That's funny. But again, I think they were trying to do something with Pete, making him this ladies guy, and all he's got to do is say hi, and all the chicks love him, and it wasn't doing it for me.
I loved Andre the most in all this.
Yes.
Because when they were checking in, the person who checked him in, I don't know, front attendant, she was into Pete.
Yes.
But she was asking Pete and Andre, how long have y'all been together? Oh, we're going on 15 years now. And it came across like they were a couple. And Pete was like, wait, whoa. And he explained it was supposed to be with him and his ex-wife. They broke up, so that's why. And then the massage, they got together.
Yep. That was funny.
Yeah, it's just Andre. It almost seems like Andre just being himself.
Which, by the way, the massage sets up something down the road, which is one of the funnier storylines, and that's Simongello? Carmengello.
I think it was in season 2. Was the high school reunion?
Yes, it was high school reunion. But anyway, we'll talk about that. But anyway, it also led us to, I think, one of the funnier reoccurring episodes. Again, a lot of setup, and that's a great show does. Season 1 should be set up for down the road, and that, of course, is Mr. McGiblets.
The Shard choice, Cadillac Williams, the Shard choice. I don't know. Roger Creighton. Where did you come from, Pierre Garcon? You are an animal with Peyton Manning tossing to you, you know? What the f***? Taco! What are you doing? Get in the house. Get in the house. Come in. Idiot.
So Taco as Mr. McGiblets, it gets played again. A lot of this is set up. It gets played later, but I just the randomness of Taco and some of the things he did, and again, we'll talk about this character in season 2. Rafi he's a very hot cold for me. I think some of his stuff is funny. But I think a lot of things, I don't know why, but it's almost like they tried to go, we need to be meaner. I thought Random Taco was perfect, and this was it. Okay, yeah, you dress up as Mr. McGiblets. Why do you have a butcher knife? Never explained. I thought that was brilliant. But yeah, I agree with you. Of the 6 episodes, I say that. All right, so let's go to Usual Bet, episode 5. We don't have any clips for it. I think Taco and Ruxin going to Chinatown and Bobby Lee being in there saves it. I did not care for the Christmas I think it's a Christmas party, isn't it?
It was a Christmas party, and then so back in a prior episode, I think it was in the bounce test episode 2. Pete meets with a mediator to go over the assets between him and his now ex-wife Megan. They didn't get along because Pete was over there trying to update his or looking at fantasy football alerts.
Well, he's looking at fantasy football. All of his receipts are stuck together.
Yeah.
I mean, he's Pete. That's kind of Pete, the lovable loser.
The mediator was getting annoyed with him, like he wasn't taking this
And
seriously.
Thomas Lennon plays him. And Thomas Lennon was in Reno 911. Thomas Lennon.
New Boo Goofing.
Yes. Thomas Lennon is one of my favorite comedic actors. And him in this role is absolutely perfect.
So I was in episode 2. So fast forward to episode 5. He is also at this Christmas party, but he's like, "Hey, look, mediation. That's just me there. Look, we're at a Christmas party. Let's have a good time."
But you're not even okay. But what is who are these people coming together?
Oh, they are part of the same. They're part of a soup group.
Which I did not know this. I just always through the years again so much when you actually look into a show, you find that was a thing. I guess it's still a thing.
Well,
the foraging and the making soup from what they find in the wild.
Andre does this. I think the next season.
Yes.
Season. Yeah.
Because that's when the Yobagoya.
Yeah.
Which that's one of our favorites.
That might be later. This is where like Chuck is in the same episode.
Okay.
I think. Well, anyway, we'll get to it.
But yeah. So that was a real thing, a soup group. People, and I guess if you do remember Facebook 2008 to 2012 was
Pre-meta.
groups. Yeah, pre-meta, like everybody deciding they wanted to show their political thoughts. You did have a bunch of groups. And so anyway, so they're a soup group. They're all part of that.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be at the Christmas party. So anyway, again, I don't hate it, but it's a season 1 episode.
I love his character though because he gets really excited about playing charades. Pete's about to leave, but he's like, "What? You can't leave now, smart guy like you. You'd be so good at this." Yep. And so Pete is roped into being on the mediators team. They're struggling, and then he is like, "Hey, look. We can do this. We're down by a lot, but we're not out yet."
Yep.
And he does like a little chant that goes, "Let's go, and he's does like a little like dance back.
Yes, he's doing his feet up in the air like a little prancing.
Yeah.
It's Thomas Lennon at his best. Also, this episode, you learn that Shiva is real.
Yes.
It's not just a trophy. Yeah. It's a person.
Rolling back, Shiva.
Yeah.
Her real name is Shiva Kamini, somewhat coming on Kram.
Yep.
And she was a high school classmate of the gang.
She's also a doctor?
Well, yeah. Fast forward 15 years later, she becomes a doctor.
And it's played by Janine Gavankar.
She was a regular, but in high school, she was a nerdy girl with braces. So not sure why they chose her as the trophy, but
well, I think it was just supposed to be like you're picking something that you all remember. Let's go win that. And she's also a plastic surgeon. She's had work in the show, not in real life, but in the show. She's had work done. Again, the actress, Janina Gavankar, she's amazing. She was on The Arrow. She's on True Blood. She voices a lot of video games. And you know me, I'm a huge video game player.
Yeah.
She's great in those. And I thought she's perfect. But the thing we found out is the picture is a real person.
Yeah.
Like, just, again, show research. When you actually go past just watching a show and you really start to go, let's find notes, that's a real person. They don't say who it is. I always thought it was just her, kind of, where they dress her up in a fake nose. But no, it's a real person. Yeah. But anyway, so we don't know the Sacco yet, but the Sacco becomes Benny. But the idea of just that they name this trophy after this random, well, we find out it's not so random because some people have had fun with them, which again, Kevin and her and another story way down in the high school reunion, just absolutely another one. But yeah, so that's what we figure out. So Shiva's a real person. All that, and that leads us to the last episode.
Well, I was going to say, so in this episode, you get the word frittata.
Yes, you get the word frittata because we're talking about Bobby Lee at the restaurant,
and you get to find out who faces who in the Shiva Bowl.
Yeah,
so it'll be Pete versus Andre.
The last time you see Pete really successful in the league,
until season 4.
Yeah.
That's when Adrian Peterson makes an appearance.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about that. Wow. Again. Yeah. But anyway, so that leads us to the last episode of the show. And that also leads to, for all the talk, I will say this right here to this day is still my favorite scene.
What's wrong with you over here?
Dude, I am going crazy sitting next to her.
What's your problem?
Because I feel like I'm in Shiva's place, and this would be the ultimate Shiva blast.
Oh, no Shiva
Wouldn't
blasting.
it be awesome? Dude, all right.
Kevin, hold.
What? I can't.
Hold.
I can't. It's like a giant dump.
You can hold it. Kevin, hold it.
You
Go outside.
I can't.
Kevin,
I'm gonna
out.
do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
Outside. Now.
Did you just Shiva blast in here? Did you just Shiva blast?
I didn't hear anything. You hear anything?
I don't know what he just did.
Shiva! Kamini Soma! Go
Now, I didn't get the edit in there because it wasn't there, but one of the funniest parts is actually her reaching or going out the window and going, Kevin? All right, so the big twist is that, again, loser Dr. Andre is dating Shiva. And to the group, he makes it seem like he's only doing it because he wants to win. Yeah. But you kind of realize he's kind of in love with her. Like, when everything breaks and she finds out the truth, he's not, he gets destroyed. But that was the big twist. Again, Andre, the loser, is dating the hot Shiva.
And that's the last time a relationship for Andre blows up big time.
What do you mean?
I was
about to say, like, wait, oh, allergy. But anyway, I thought that was the best way to end the season. I thought the way they ended it, and we'll actually, when we go out, we'll end it. And part of the last scene that we'll play as we close out, one of the things about the league, and I think everybody knew this, this was very big in that era because this is the Judd Apatow era of comedy. Almost all of this is ad-lib. Like, they're told the frame, like, you need to do this, you need to make sure he's this, now go. And the thing about that is that's got to be really, really tough to edit. Like, that's got to be really tough to edit because you got to, when you go improv, you're going to record 40 different of the same thing, and then you've got to decide to chop it up. Sometimes that fails. I thought and this is something you don't talk about with shows enough, the editing of this show, whoever picked what they ran with, I thought was brilliant. There's very few scenes where you just go, okay, that's just dumb. I mean, it seemed like every time they were nailing the comedy part.
Yeah, and if you watch it 2 or 3 times, you'll notice a lot of the characters are breaking character.
Well, and I was going to say, the very end, the last part of season 1 that just truly grabbed me, and I said, okay, I'm in for this. I want to, again, because like I said, we started, both of us, I think it was season 3. Because I kind of think I remember just absolutely marathoning season 1 and 2 like over a Sunday in non-football season that had just went to Netflix. But the last thing we'll play out when they start singing the song, if you look at Mark Duplass and Kevin, Stephen Razzini, well, he's got a story on himself. If you look at them, though, when I play this, if you look at them and you see there's a moment where they buy in. Like, there's a moment, and then Nick Kroll starts the dance. Yeah. And that's when you realize these people are 100% in. This isn't just a job. They're absolutely having a blast. And then you also realize, oh, wow, the football that's the foundation, but that's not really the point at all. And through the years, and some of my knocks against the show is at times there's just no football. But yeah, the last scene, them singing again, that's how we'll close out the show. But them singing and doing the thing, I think that I can just remember just a big smile on my face going, yeah, I love this. This is exactly what I want. And so before we do that, I do want to say this, and you gave me a hard time about this, but this show also means a lot to me because this is honestly one of the things that laid the foundation for our friendship. Yeah. Because I'm like, have you watched the league? And you're like, yeah, dude, I'm freaking hilarious. And we just start talking about it. And we'd already started talking sports and stuff. But that was the moment where, like, I can remember when we started watching them up to date. And you're like, did you watch it? I'm like, no, don't tell me anything. Let me watch it. Yeah. Just tell me when you watch it so we can talk about it. But yeah, so that is the first season of the league. We're going to do these every season through this off season. I think that's just, again, the perfect show to start our sports, movies, and TV shows. And so I will end like the season 1 ended right here with this beauty.
Kanda Kram Shiva, Kamini Soma Kanda Kram Shiva, Kamini Soma Kanda Kram Shiva, Kamini
kamini soma kandakram. Hey! Shiva kamini soma kandakram. Shiva kamini soma kandakram. Hey! Shiva kamini soma kandakram. Shiva kamini soma kandakram.